Aloha Nityanandam. Let's begin with a communion oneness Advaita prayer. You're welcome to say the prayer of your tradition. For me personally, I prefer silence. Thank you. So, welcome to the melting pot. The melting pot of subjective truths, Hawaii's luau of interculture interfaith buffet style, of investigative, diplomatic, mediator, liberator in the global neighborhood. I don't take sides. I am for global peace treaty, global bureau of conveyance, family-centric, consciousness-based societies. I advocate mothers to initiate third eye and Kundalini through umbilical cord initiation. Message to share with all humanity entrusted by Cosmos as a divine mother on behalf of all divine mothers. So all of us live powers from day one with no discrimination. We all live in the global neighborhood, and one Dharma having ideas of supremacy is one of the main problems with humanity right now. And all cultures, religions are unique. They are not the same. There are some cultures and traditions and religions that teach Advaita or oneness, communion, and there are those that don't. So in the one dharmas or the one families or the one religions, they may or may not have Advaita, but those who are Advaitis, like myself, one Dharma is taught, honored, and respected because consciousness is held sacred. The elitist, supremacist, hierarchical mental setup is racism, imperialism, Zionism, Brahmanism, which are banking strategies executed through all religions, countries, cultures, designed to divide and conquer, to enslave all the masses, which is you. So there's debt slavery on every level. Follow the money. Take the time to spend a moment of silence and prayer for the Congolese man who set himself on fire protesting genocide. Anybody using tech, even this podcast, is forever indebted to the Congolese people for the slavery of children as young as 4 years old are forced to mine raw materials for tech, decades-long enslavement.
A Congolese man set himself on fire to bring attention to the ongoing genocide and exploitation that is happening to his people in the DRC. The video is circulating all over Twitter, and now it has made its way to TikTok right now. And people are outraged. And I actually searched up the whole situation to see if there's articles on it, and no BBC or CNN or Washington Post, none of these big publications covered it because they want to hide what they are doing in the DRC. So the man literally set himself on fire. Like, I don't even know how he can have that kind of courage. but just to like bring attention to what's happening to the people of Congo. Like they're being exploited. Millions of people, children at the age of 4, are mining cobalt and coltan and all kinds of stuff for the tech companies and all kinds of stuff. Okay, and I don't know if you guys seen the video, but it's pretty heavy. And because we need to bring attention to this issue, guys. Nobody's talking about what's happening in Africa and how these people are suffering from the same colonial power. Israel, America, Britain, France, all these people are taking advantage of these innocent people and their lives. The conflict in the DRC is fueled by the competition for the rich natural resources of the region, such as gold, coltan, and cobalt, which are used in various industries and technologies. Literally every big company, every tech company, the government, everyone is taking advantage of the Congolese people and their natural resource, which belongs to them, and they're not even profiting from it. They're being forced to mine it. First of all, do all the hard work, risk their lives, and then these people steal it from them and come and make billions of dollars worth of profit off of these people's lives. So please share this video, make it go wild, even outside of TikTok. If you see other people talking about this, nobody is covering this. There's no news articles covering this. Like, they don't care, because they're gonna lose profits if the world wakes up to support the Congolese people and also the Sudanese people and all the other exploitation and genocides in Africa. So please share this video outside of TikTok. Let's talk about this. The Congolese people desperately need us.
Let's take a moment of prayer and silence for this Congolese man and the Congolese people. Thank you. So the other planned genocide that happens is to animals, and it's all on mothers, exploitation of mothers. So those Congolese people, if there are children as young as 4, what community in their right mind would allow that? Obviously, there must be women who are raped and forced to have children, much like the animals. If we remain silent for animal mothers, the same atrocities are happening to our fellow humans in Congo, Gaza, Hawaii, Native Americans, etc., all the earth peoples. And all of it is exploitation of mothers. And so for me, I am talking to oppressors' mothers. Because oppression doesn't magically perpetuate itself. So we should be changing the narrative. What are we consciously perpetuating, even down to gifts? Right? Let's normalize handmade gifts, digital gifts, regifting, secondhand gifts, consumable gifts, experience gifts, and small business gifts. And all of this oppression due to supremacy is basically grandpas with their crayon scribbles fighting over whose family story is better and more legitimate. My question is founded on what? Violence, posturing, threatening, imposed ignorance, theft, torture, caging, kidnap, rape, prostitution, science experimenting, torture, murder, genocide, which is all planned, built, broken. How does that really matter? Only to that guy waving around his crayon scribbles on the other side of the rock wall, crazy neighbor suffering from narcissism. Heal anxiety and depression by doing your DNA genealogy and spiritual genealogy. When you do that, You will have the most delicious, beautiful adventure into celebrating your life. Get your wiggles out. You get to regain what was stolen or hidden from you. Meaning food, dance, music, medicine, spirituality. DNA is your culture. It's in there. And it being ignored is the source of all of your problems. Only love exists. What's in your DNA? In my findings, I have found colonizers use treaties, and it's just a bait and switch strategy. Stop wars starts with you. What's in your DNA? What are you perpetuating? You are consciousness, and you are paying rent. You are here in the cosmos, multiverse cosmos, paying rent to who? Legit question. I advocate mothers to initiate third eye and Kundalini, levels the playing field from the get-go on day one, because there's no discrimination. Mothers don't discriminate. Healthy mothers don't even pick favorites or choose sides. Never worry about who will be offended when you speak the truth. Worry about who will be misled, deceived, and destroyed if you don't. Always do your own research, fact check, and trust yourself. There's a lot of people pushing their own vested interest agendas to further their agenda, perspective. On you. Always posturing, right? Because of the enslavement mentality. So be yourself, the world will adjust. I consider myself a secular Hindu quantum catalyst fusionist, because I don't know what else to call it. Because I'm just like, I ain't picking sides. As a divine mother on behalf of all, or blessed by the cosmic mother, continuously being like, yeah, no, that's like my children trying to use me as a weapon to pick sides. I don't do that. Can we all just get along? It's every mother's mantra, right? That's across cultures. Okay? Every mother's mantra. So I advocate mothers to initiate third eye and Kundalini through umbilical cord initiation, because the 460 powers of Mahadeva are real. Hinduism is real. I advocate for homeschooling. To empower with independence, independent of self, is true mother worship. School is actually not compulsory. It is a service in America, a governmental service that you are not forced to participate in. For me, I am living and exercising the full dynamic of my rights to even start my own family, right? Which is a lineage, a sampradaya, vibe tribe of self-governed families expressing their own liberated consciousness, ensuring up-to-date DNA expression spiritually, economically, and politically. One could say, well, that's how America was founded. No, it wasn't. It had slaves, right? So let's get even real about that. So to what extent, right? No one will ever grant me my birthright. Women are the source of posterity. Thus, the right to have one's own country and currency. Not the UN, not anyone or group, because time is life. That's been blessed to all of us equally by whoever we call upon as God. Not anybody. And when the exchange or currency is 1 hour for 1 hour exchanges only because of ego, and humans are susceptible to power and control, right? I think just being like, yeah, no, 1 hour for 1 hour, and every person is making choices for what they're going to be doing to contribute, right? Mothers are global leaders. Why? Because the female form is a walking temple life, more sacred and holy than all the temples, churches, holy places, and human achievement combined. The last guardians of the future, keeping everything current, including DNA, entrusted by Cosmos Paramashiva God. And it's everybody who is grabbing mommies and grabbing babies to perpetuate their whatever it is. And a vast majority is people enamored with the sounds coming out of their mouth, perpetuating that. And so, yeah, mother and father is the first guru. Only Cosmos Paramashiva God granted bless me life. And I'm advocating for a Moksha Peace Treaty, which is self-governed sovereignty. You are here paying rent to who? It's a legit question. Want to redefine slavery, proposing to redefine slavery. Built-in constructs of slavery is when landlords exist, slavery exists. No masters, no slave. Either everyone owns an acre of land or no one owns land. I advocate for food forests with all the deforestation going on so that Kailasa, or heaven, on Buloka, earth, is possible. I'm advocating for a Hawaiian American peace treaty, global peace treaty, moksha peace treaty, meaning self-governed personal responsibility of unalienable rights. Because we're only talking about contracts. Global peace treaty is actual and factual humanitarian law. I'm advocating for a global bureau of conveyance. It ensures collective integrity of mutual respect and honorable conduct. The UN is supposed to be doing this, but that's not what they're doing. They have all these other agendas being pushed and not being straight. They're threatening, World War III. It's just like, no, slow your roll. Force majeure, every country, right? And then allow the people who want to leave, right? Maybe they should all move in at the UN and the Hague and the Geneva, right? So stop posturing and saying shit. Enamored with the sounds coming out of your mouth. Also, I advocate for a global fair trade for roots culture master artisans. Ran into that issue because whether it's Target or all these corporations are pitting one culture against the other, using their cultural things. Like for me, I'm a Luau Holloway, and that's how it all started. I'm also advocating for a women's safe house shelter, not a, it's a safe house, and redefining what the shelter is, because everywhere is an exploitation of women on every level to perpetuate whatever BS of all of that, including not educating them or whatever, just only enslaving them to keep producing babies for what? Right? The same thing that they do, and then they do the same thing to, you should go and look at what they do in those, whatever what it's called, slaughterhouses with glass walls. You should go look that up. What are they doing to the babies? The same thing is happening to the human babies, our babies all over the world. And I also advocate for agriculture and livestock separation in law and policy, because they're hiding planned genocide and murder behind the skirt of plants, which is actual food, in the claim, and that's food. No, it's not. you're outsourcing your murder. If you really want to go eat it, go hunt it down yourself. I initiate third eye and Kundalini. I recommend people to roll their breakfast. I don't impose anything because everything is a lifestyle. Being a very inclusive, that's just how I am, and that's how I roll, right? I share and teach the basics. If there are cultures like Kanaka Maoli culture is a power manifesting culture, yet to find where I can point them. So only those who are very serious about power manifestation, I do point to Parma Shivoham or Swamiji. Swamiji is standing up and saying, hey, I want to do this, I want to be guru, and I want to teach power manifestation, and I'm just Tatastu. So today in Parma Shivoham, level 1 got the initiations into flowering of self-awakened Sahasrara chakra. Parama Guru manifests in the Sahasrara. And Nitya Dhyan, level 2 was initiated into integrity, authenticity, responsibility, and enriching. And level 3 got initiation into the Vak Shakti, Mano Shakti, Prima Shakti, and Atma Shakti. So this is the disclaimer. If you travel beyond this point, you will be responsible for cost of search and rescue. Personal responsibility code. Me personally, I call upon Mahaparamashiva, Mahadeva, God. I recommend you call upon who you call upon as God before proceeding. So, decolonizing your mind again. Let's get back to family-centric societies, right? Real family-centric societies. Corporations and such try to mimic or entice a image that is not consistent, right? It separates the doing and the being, and that's the problem, right? And by governments posturing themselves, making perceptions that going to school is necessary is a huge lie. It's not. So again, because the governments use politicians and lobbyists, right? Corporations, they're the ones that are all part of the swarm, which I'm learning from Dr. Shiva, right? So to decolonize your mind, right? Those who are Americans in America, who are still suffering from their narcissistic abuser and having preferences of those abusive things and perpetuating the word salads such as know your place is a slave construct, right? Let's look at the words that people use every day. Yeah. And imposing all of that onto actual land of the free people, which are the earth peoples, First Nation peoples, indigenous, African, in Canada, Aboriginal, South American, Hindus, ancient Hindus, Native Americans, Mexican, Kanaka, Maoli, Earth people, right? Had that freedom and not that consciousness monocropping of the one God, this and that. And so going along with getting more information and sharing with you as I'm going through them about what is this swarm and their elitist and Zionist agendas that divide and control, and globally it's a global issue. And so, coincidence or not, finding his material, and he is running for president for America. And because for me, I'm all inclusive, and sharing that content for understanding, because for the globalists, they're already living that one world order, and with the postured perceptions of the different countries when it's not, is part of the problem. So want to share more on
the swarm is
what he's sharing, what he has found because of his lawsuits, of him exercising to the full extent of his freedom of speech, and making decisions to jump in that snake pit, things that me personally, I'm not about that. I'm actually an anarchist. I don't believe in government, because of what it is, people's egos, because they're wanting to, and instead of having a larger family to take care of, they rather have gangs, essentially, or whatever. But finding it very interesting, because it's a mental setup. It's not, so how to avoid narcissists, right? That's essentially what we should call it. How to avoid narcissists. Go learn about Zionism and all of that, and go find out what companies they run. Don't go and work there. Start your own company, right? All of that.
The swarm is very clever. It will create the theater, and that's what we're seeing right now with Israel. So when you look at Israel, using that systems approach, Kim, it gives you a prescience to see things, not because you're super smart, it's because there are certain principles that are there. So right now, if you look at what's going on with Israel, it's the same phenomenon. And to understand that, we have to understand the interlinkages of history. So if you go back to 2008, Barack Obama was brought in as a candidate of the swarm, right? Overnight, the Pritzkers, I think one of the big families in Chicago, funded him, and this one-term senator is thrust upon people, because people were pretty upset at that point with the Bushes, so they needed hope. So Obama is created, and he's thrust upon people. In fact, 57% of people voted for Trump, voted for Obama. People need to understand that. So he was able to, quote-unquote, appeal to the broad working class, who, instead of breaking and building a bottoms-up movement, they needed to put another false idol. And that's really the goal. They do not want people to build a bottoms-up movement. And once we understand that, you'll see why they create these characters. So what does Obama do? At the height of his presidency in 2008, the Zionists who control the financial systems, the Zionists and their cohorts, the swarm, were involved in printing money, realized that they had been making all these derivative products, these loans, which were going to fail and fall. And they had a major failure in 2008, and all the banks failed because they were giving out crazy types of products. That was created by the collusion of the Federal Reserve, the banks, and the treasuries. All of them were involved. They all rotate between them. When that crash took place, what did Obama do, the man of the people? He printed $8 trillion and bailed them all out. This is critical to understand. $8.1 trillion was Obama printed. And that money dispersed, and they called it quantitative easing. Swarm is very clever, with very clever words. That money went really to boost up the stock market and went to the swarm. They saved the swarm. And between 2008 and 2016, that money was even dispersed, right? By 2016, in my view, they knew another economic crash was coming, because the United States economy was being built on fumes, not really bottom-set entrepreneurs and real innovation. Just look at it. So they needed, and people had had it with Obama, they needed a new fake idol, and that was the purpose of Trump. Trump was created, he was manufactured. If you look at his balance sheet, I have somebody I know who analyzed his balance sheet, okay? He had $1 billion in assets and $2 billion in debt. And this guy told him, look, Donald, you're a billionaire, you're a negative billionaire, right? He was a reality show billionaire. So they found this guy, gave him all the talking points, drain the swamp, lock her up. I'm sure they did amazing focus group analysis on this, but particularly the white working class would want to hear. He was brought in, and what did he do? There was an economic crash that was predicted to come. So in order not to have that economic crash come out, and in a true market capitalism model that should have come out, and we should have gotten rid of all the products that didn't work, right? Instead, they created a pandemic. The pandemic was a wonderful crisis that they created to hide the underpinnings of the fact that the entire financial system was running on fumes. And what did Trump do? In one term, he printed $8 trillion. Where did that money go? It went to 600 billionaires who increased their wealth by $2.3 trillion. Elon Musk being among one of them, who's like this with government. He's a front man for government. And the stock market, which was going like this, did a nice V-turn, if you remember. But still, the economy is running on fumes. And in my thesis, if you follow this all the way through this October, there should be a massive crash. Anyone who looks at this knows that the stock market is at ridiculous high levels that it never should be. You can look at certain stocks. The whole thing, the swarm is running this on fumes, on the backs of working people in this country. So in my theory, they needed another crisis. And it was a meeting of two crises in Israel itself. If you go back prior to October 7th and the 12 months before that, there's been a massive civil war brewing in Israel. Against who? Against Netanyahu. Israeli Jews and many different coalitions know this guy's corrupt. He was convicted, right? He has multiple indictments. And so there's been this bottoms-up movement brewing in Israel. 2 weeks before October 7th, there were nearly 100,000 people who protested against him because he was trying to manipulate the judiciary. And none of this is the mainstream media. Right. From April to October, he had sent twice to invade the main mosque there. So he wanted to incite something. It's your typical corrupt leader who's got internal problems and they want to point it to someone else and start a war. And that's what Netanyahu did. And by the way, if you look at the shekel price, people should just map it from January 2022 to today. It's been precipitously coming down, which means the Israeli elites have been selling off the shekel and more than likely moving to treasuries. So you have many Israeli companies have been moving out. So Israel is in disaster economically. Netanyahu's entire existence is threatened. So how wonderful, I'm not saying this happened in this way, a phone call is made to Hamas, which by the way, Israel created, okay? Yossi Cohen, the Mossad chief 2 years before that, had been with Qatar saying, please fund Hamas more. So overnight, you see these gliders coming over, evading supposedly the most amazing surveillance that Israel has. AI watching every microsecond, comes in and you have this crisis. Now it helps the U.S. swarm and the Israeli swarm. Both are very connected, a la Zionism, because the United States economy is running on fumes. Now you have the third opportunity to do quantitative easing and print more money. And that's what this is about. You have to follow the money. And from a systems perspective, all fits beautifully because the swarm protects itself. And Zionism is very key to this because the Zionist concept has been very effectively used to manipulate Jews. And we should talk more about that. The working class Jews versus the bourgeois Jews going all the way back to World War II. People need to understand Zionism is racism. It's a political ideology. Zionists collaborated with the Nazis in the Warsaw Ghetto Revolt, for example, to disarm the Jews who actually wanted to fight. Zionism and Nazism have always gone together like this. And in the United States, the Zionists have been very effective at manipulating the quote-unquote Christian evangelical Zionists. So the broad mass among America, there's this big support for quote-unquote Israel, and that really comes from the evangelicals. The evangelical Christians, who many of them are very connected to Mossad and Israel, if you do a little bit of research, and to, in fact, write to Bibi Netanyahu. So the manipulation that's gone on is quite extraordinary. And Mike Johnson, who's a recent speaker, the second in line to be president, completely reflects that. Here's a hardcore quote-unquote Christian. I put that in double quotes because I don't think Christ supports Zionism. And first thing he does is when he gets elected, he does a proclamation, we must support Israel. So it says pretty much right there. So we need to look at this in the context of finance and money supply. The money supply, as Milton Friedman says, when it contracts more than 2 quarters, there's typically going to be a bear market. And they're trying to stave off a bear market. That's what this is all about. And war is a wonderful way. You have a little dip, and then you print money and you come out of it. So that's what this whole setup is. And all of this is being done at the expense of Jewish people and the Palestinian people. And when I say the Jewish people, the non-Zionists, because frankly, the Zionists don't give a damn about Jews, nor do they give a damn about Palestinians. And all of this feeds British and U.S. imperialism imperialism. It was Britain that allowed Zionism to go and occupy this land because they wanted that strategic outpost. They wanted to create a strata of people who would be their frontmen to basically seize that location and create a perpetual war. And so when Booby Kennedy says he wants to support that
aircraft carrier in the Middle East,
aircraft carrier, he's telling you boldly, at least finally people should see who he is. On the medical freedom movement, he supported Hillary Clinton. He wanted people coming to his home to be vaccinated. So when you put it all together, what I love about this issue about Zionism, Kim, it exposes who these people are. Tulsi Gabbard has to reveal that she is a part of the swarm. Bernie Sanders has to reveal he's part of the swarm. It is that defining issue. And then you're finding these other people who you may have disagreed on other things. When it comes to Zionism, we can actually unite on that. So that's what I see the opportunity here.
It certainly is another one of those topics that is reorganizing alliances. There's no doubt about that. People that I agreed with very much so during the pandemic or about the endless wars. Suddenly, when it comes to this one issue, it's just all in for Israel, all in for sending, even if it means sending American troops to battle it out over there. This new war on terror 2.0. Tulsi Gabbard's all in on this. She's very much like radical Islam is the number one thing we must battle. And it's really, because how successful have we been at that over the last 20? When have we ever had a single success on that? All we've done is make it more radical, right? Create ISIS or because people are going to be angry when you kill their kids. That's what's going to happen. And they're going to want to liberate their people, like revenge, and a lot of times very brutally. I think that is something that if you were to kill my kid, and I get it, and I get that's why Israel now is saying they came after us and our 1,300 people, and so now we're just gonna, but I agree with you that because I'm seeing this movement in Israel as well, this uprising against Netanyahu, that a lot of them are saying there's been enough blood, there's been enough war, our people were killed, their people were killed, we're done with this, like we don't need any more. But Netanyahu, who's trying to save his own skin, and he's very intertwined in the U.S. political system, and he's very close with Jared Kushner and Trump and all these various different people, and he's certainly absolutely trying to save his skin. So a lot of people, I think, even in Israel, I think you're right that there's this brewing civil war potentially. I even watched a video the other day of Netanyahu when he showed up at a military base in Israel. Some of the Israeli soldiers were yelling at him, like saying, you did this to us, this is your fault. They were angry. So you've got military guys pointing the finger at Netanyahu saying, this is you did this to us. Yeah, I think that they're on edge.
Well, I think the Zionism issue, it gives us an opportunity to finally have a real discussion about this at a very deep level. And that's what I've been attempting to do. And we've been educating people, what is Zionism? Zionism is racism in the service of imperialism.
Well, let's unpack that so that people understand, because a lot of people don't understand. They equate, because the narrative right now is that if you say Israel or if you say Zionism, you're really meaning Jews, which is not the same thing at all. Zionism is
it's not. So in this educational process, Kim, when you go back and look at this, if you look at maps going all the way to 1600, it clearly says Palestine. Okay. Just as a side note, this is not the central note. Imagine you're living in Vermont and you've lived there for 300 years. The Vikings, who actually did come there, say, hey, we have this place. We were there 4,000 years ago. That's our land. It's ludicrous. Okay. You dug up some 4,000-year-old wreck. So that's where that's coming from. But so that's one just point so people how stupid this is, how ludicrous it is, because you have to look at the current context that was taking place. The current context of the time, if we go to the mid-1800s, by the way, I've spent time in Israel about 6 weeks, and I have a lot of good Jewish friends, right? Where many of them are anti-Zionist, by the way.
Yeah.
So when I was in the 80s, when I was 17, 18 years old, I really started exploring this. And so for me, it was very personal because I grew up in India where there was a caste system, and the Hinduism was never originally based on the caste system. Then you created this thing called the Brahmin caste system, which is very much like Zionism. That's where Tulsi Gabbard is getting the stuff from, because she's quote unquote a Hindu. And so the Brahmanical caste system took elements of Hinduism, and then they packaged it up to justify the fact that one group of people were chosen over the others. Very fundamentally similar to the Brahmin caste system, Zionism. So when I came to the United States, I grew up in Patterson, which is a very poor African-American public school system, then Clifton. Parsippany had, very interestingly, Jews, but they were working class Jews. My 6th grade teacher had been in the Navy. He ran a small deli, right? But when I moved to Livingston, New Jersey, by the way, where Jared Kushner and Ivanka maybe still used to live, Chris Christie was a catcher of our baseball team. I used to pitch. I noticed a big difference. Me and my sister were the only two dark-skinned Indians among this massive group of around 4,000 Jewish kids. And I remember around 9th or 10th grade, the parents would send their kids to Israel. And these very nice friends of mine would come back rabid Zionists, wanting to kill every Arab. It was quite amazing to watch this transformation. But there was always in the ether the concept of the chosen people. Now, Livingston was a much wealthier school system than Parsippany or Clifton. So the reason I want to unpack this is that there is a class issue here. There is very wealthy Jews, and there are the working class Jews. So now if you go back to the 1800s, there were Jewish pogroms taking place by the quote-unquote Cossacks. So that's a reality. What one needs to understand is that at that Theodore Herzl, Herzl, he comes out in the middle of all of this in the 1800s, and there were two trends at that time among Jewish people. One trend was, hey, we're everyday people. We have the right to fight back for our progressive nationalist rights. The ethnic nationalism was what Herzl represented, and he really wanted to actually divide Jews. He wasn't into Jews fighting against their oppression, very much like Marcus Garvey did in the United States. In the Black movement, Marcus Garvey said, oh, we're being mistreated here. Let's go back to Africa. It was an ethnic nationalism. Let's go back to our old homeland, forgetting that the African kings themselves were slave owners, right? So Herzl came from that trend of the bourgeois Jews. He manufactured a philosophy called Zionism, which was based on racism. And his collaborators were other racists who funded him. Cecil Rhodes, Cecil Rhodes. Rhodes, Rhods. Rhodes was the founder of Rhodesia, very closely linked with apartheid South Africa, and for example, exploiting the hell out of Black people all over South Africa. He was the one who founded the Rhodes Scholarship at Oxford. He was very much into starting World War I, demonizing the Germans. Horrible human being. But that's where Herzl got his funding from one of the most racist people on the planet. At the Sixth Zionist Conference, the goal was we were going to make Uganda be our homeland. Okay? And then the British in the Balfour Declaration said, no, we're going to move you over here. Knowing that Arabs were there, 97% Arabs, right, in Palestine, Britain had been looking for many years to seize that very strategic location. And this was remember, British model was always divide and rule. You go into a place, geographically divide, people cause a lot of ruckus, and then you start striking deals. They did it all over Africa, India, etc. So they collaborated with Herzl, brought European Jews. You just need to understand these people weren't dark-skinned Arabs. They were white Jews from Europe who'd been there for 300 years. And these people essentially come in, occupy Palestine. It was an invasion. There were Arabs who were Jews. There were Arabs who were Christians, Arabs who were Muslims there. And a number of Arabs who were Jews start converting to Islam based on the treatment they suffered from these European Jews coming, quote-unquote Zionists. And so that's the origin of the Zionist movement. But it was done, when I say Zionism is racism in the service of imperialism, this is British and U.S. imperialists who want their aircraft carrier in the Middle East, who want that strategic location. So they did this divide and rule policy, and Herzl was a perfect character to support them in this process. And at the time, one needs to understand that this is a very critical thing to understand. Times the Zionists, who were the bourgeois Jews, collaborated with Hitler against working class Jews, many of them who were trade union leaders, organizing these bottoms-up movements to overthrow Hitler. They collapsed in the famous ghetto revolt. Jews, Zionists, were the police force in those ghettos. And it was those people, in fact, led people to the gas chambers. It was those people who collaborated with Nazis, and there were Jews who were fighting Hitler with Molotov cocktail sticks and stones, and they exposed these people, they disarmed them. So everyone needs to understand there's Zionism, Judaism, right? And they're two different phenomena.
The vast majority of the people of Israel and the people of Palestine just want a better life. They just want to work and have a good life for their children, for themselves, have homes, have opportunities. That's all they want. And they could absolutely do it together. I have no doubt after meeting the Palestinian people, after being around in Israel and seeing the average Israelis, they could absolutely live together and have a prosperous, wonderful life, just like we've been able to do here in the United States. You and I, as people who are not white, we do believe that we can make it, we can work in this country, that we have opportunities. We don't have to be separated and segregated from one another. We don't need to live like that. And I believe that the swarm, like you're saying, the swarm of on all sides is just operating together for their own self-interest. Do you think Hamas wants to end this if these guys are making billions of dollars off of this conflict? You think these Israeli Likud party people want to stop this when it's self-preservation? They're making money and they're in the elite and they're the swarm. Nobody wants to end it, but the people do. And you're right. We have to rise up. We have to get the message out, and we have to say the people, this is for the people, this is what the people want. We want to end this division and this hatred and this rhetoric that's meant to divide us and keep us separated, just to keep them going, keep the swarm going. That's all we're doing. And you have really wonderfully pointed that out. So I really definitely recommend everybody watch the swarm video. Again, that is down below. Also, you have I noticed at the end of the swarm video, you mentioned you have an institute that people can learn from.
Yeah, what I did, Kim, when I got back from my Fulbright work, I realized one of the most important things that we can do to help everyone in the world is to learn the science of systems. I used to teach it at MIT to elites. The elites use the science of systems. They understand the dynamics of control. But that same knowledge, curriculum, can be used for us for our own liberation. So I put this curriculum together, and I realized that, like fire being brought to the masses, like Prometheus did, we need to bring this knowledge to the masses. So I created it, put it into a course, and people can go to truefreedomhealth.com, and people can learn it. And if you're an adult and you learn it, you can then give it away to as many children as you want between 13 through 18. Okay. So it is the science of systems, in my view, that is going to be the liberating force. It gives people the tools to understand this so they don't get into the left or right camp. And that, to me, it's about raising human consciousness. We're at an extraordinary time where there's massive darkness taking place. It's an opportunity for people to raise consciousness. And if enough of us do that, consciousness, raising the consciousness is also as an energy. It spreads to others. So that's the opportunity that we have.
So tell us how your campaign is going.
Yeah, so it's going really well, Kim. As you can see, if you look broadly across, when we're not shadow banned on social media, more and more people, you can look at it every day, say, hey, I'm going to vote for Dr. Shiva, I'm going to vote for Dr. Shiva, I'm going to vote for Dr. Shiva. Hey, this guy is the one who has consistently spoken the truth. Every Thursdays we do a town hall. So for example, this evening we do a town hall. We get those numbers keep growing. But a lot of what we're doing, Kim, is to get people on the ground. As I shared last time, when people go to our website, Shiva for President, they download bumper stickers, but we actually have a very powerful flyer. It's old school, Kim, what I used to do when I was a student activist, right? A flyer, one-page flyer. The left side of the flyer really shares. We, in our movement, have close to about 500,000 people globally. So we've been doing a lot of hard work. Now, in every state, we have to get on the ballot, which means you have to have an organization structure. Typically, only the Republicans and Democrats have that. Fortunately, we have that infrastructure. We have leaders in every state. So it's a pretty large operation we're running. I love building organizations. I've done it as an entrepreneur. I've figured out how to motivate people. You have to build sort of a meritocracy model. So it's all these skills that I learned. So it's a lot of fun. But most importantly, we're finding these amazing people who themselves are rising to the occasion so one person doesn't have to do it. And so the organizational infrastructure piece is really important, what's happening all over the country. The other piece is on the issue, we went into some detail on the issue of that why it's unconstitutional not to allow a naturalized citizen to become president. I'm the first one who also filed a declaratory relief lawsuit against Merrick Garland. And I can, if you want, I can share that, but it's a cover of that. But I'll send it to you guys later to put in. But that lawsuit basically says, hey, look, for 3 reasons, not only can I run and be president, A, I can run because of the First Amendment, 2, because of the 2011 opinion of the Federal Election Commission, which clearly said a naturalized citizen can run, but you just can't get federal matching funds, which I'm not interested in anyway. But more importantly, the 14th and 5th Amendment reciprocate each other, which again have never been asserted. The first article said that only men can be president. The 19th Amendment allows women to be president. Similarly, the argument is the 14th Amendment does. And most legal scholars agree with this. It's just no one has asserted it, actually said, hey, I'm running for president and I'm going to file a declaratory relief lawsuit. That's what we're doing.
Okay, great. I want to talk about the swarm. You just have such an interesting way of putting this out there. When a lot of us talk about, and we hear this all throughout social media, and many people are very concerned about this, the powers that be who are controlling things.
And to each other. The swarm, be it the Kennedys, be it the Trumps, be it the Bernie Sanders, they're not going to help you. They're all Zionists. They're part of this. Don't look to them. And quick pitch, again, people can go to Shiva4President.com. We have a bumper sticker there we recommend people to get. My belief is the future is offline. Everything's controlled online. So I recommend people go there. There's a flyer we have on the download. Download it. You can educate people who is a swarm, what they're doing to your health and your children's health. The future is going offline. And if you really want to get educated, go to Truth for Them Health and start understanding how systems work. But that's the way out. It's education. Get educated or be enslaved. That's my slogan here. And that's it's a long game in that sense, but it's the ultimate game.
Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai, this has been a wonderful conversation once again. Thank you so much for being here. And I do have all those links down below so anybody can find everything really easily, but wonderful, enlightening conversation. Oh, I thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Kim. Great discussion. Very intelligent. I'm glad we had this conversation.
So, the Truth, Freedom, Health, he's training warrior scholars on specializing on the swarm. And so, go check it out. Thank you so much for attending. I'm going to close with communion prayer. You're welcome to say closing prayers of your tradition. I prefer silence. Thank you. Aloha. Have a good evening. Nityanandam.